Hello. Hi, y'all. My name is Bree. I'm one of the co-founders of La Nova Link, a community to connect Latinx creatives and professionals. For those who want to get to know more about what we're about, follow us at La Nova Link or visit lanovalink.com to join. Y'all, this is the last week of Latinx Heritage Month, all those targeted ads and J Balvin meals. But nonetheless, these past 4 weeks, we've been able to hold space for important dialogue and connection amongst the Latinx community here in the US. We're all about pushing perspectives and sharing wisdom to help you all to take your hustle to the next level and keep on shining. So tonight we're excited to welcome all of you to our last panel for Latinx Heritage Month, the Brazil Effects.
Dime a ver, everyone. Hi, I'm Jenny Mota, editor at La Nueva Link. You can catch our editorial piece in La Esquina, my bad, a column that lives in our monthly newsletter. So make sure to subscribe because it's pretty dope. I'm not saying it because I'm the editor. We cover all things related to our community, politically, socially, and culturally. We created this panel to elevate dialogue with our Brazilian hermanex to understand the nuances of their lived experiences here in the US. We have an all-star panel tonight. It's going to be extremely exciting. So I'm going to start introducing everyone. I'm going to start with filmmaker and photographer Mailson Soares. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, La Nueva Link, for all of this. It's amazing. It's a pleasure for me being here, talking with you guys about that. And I am Mailson, filmmaker from Brazil, living in Los Angeles, and I'm so excited for this conversation.
We're excited too. Moving forward with web developer at the Wall Street Journal, Kristen Cabrera. Kristen, thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and connect with all of you. Thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you. And lastly, Niege Borges, graphic designer. Thank you for being here, Niege.
Hi, thank you. I'm excited to talk to everyone.
Thank you. Also, for everyone attending, be sure to use the Q&A functionality in the bottom to ask the panelists questions. Now I'll leave you with our moderator for the night, the iconic Rudah, brand marketer, creative director. Rudah, take it away.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, everybody, to jump in today to participate with our talk. This is very nice. La Nueva Link is an incredible platform, newly established, and I think you guys been doing a fantastic job. So thank you, everybody, to chime in, to join in this conversation today. First, I think it's awesome for us as Brazilians to be represented over here as well. Not often that happens. I think that's very nice. Gesture is very important as well, obviously. I think first thing I would like to say is just give a very quick introduction about Brazil. Because often I see over here, especially in the United States, a lot of misconceptions in regards of Brazil. So we're talking about the 5th largest country in the world, the largest country in Latin America. Obviously, we speak Portuguese, different language than Spanish. Is the 9th economy in the world, 9th biggest GDP in the world, and we're an extremely diverse country. We have the 2nd largest Black population in the world, accounting 54% of the population. Also, women in Brazil is 52% of the population. We have one of the largest Native populations in the world, and immigrants coming from all over the world, such as Japan, Germany, Italy, Lebanon, nowadays Haiti, Bolivia, Peru. So it's an extremely diverse country, also very diverse and strong identities to its regional regions. And that translates into also the intercultural exchange with other countries, such as other regions, such as the Caribbean, United States, other parts of Latin America, Europe, Africa, and such. Just giving that context, also, I feel Brazil, it's one of the countries in the spotlight, obviously culturally in regards of its influence, but often a little bit of an island in itself due to a language barrier as well. So people all over the world looks at Brazilian art, Brazilian music. Brazilian music obviously is very influential from bossa nova to funk and nowadays with samba, funk and such. But at the same time, the language I feel always been a barrier, even for Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters. So just give you a bit of a context of a country. Today we have three panelists among us. Each one of us come from a completely different background within the Brazilian experience. I am from Rio de Janeiro. I have family in São Paulo. I've been in the United States for 16 years. Most of my life, I work in music and music business, managing and booking artists. Lately, I spent a little bit of 5 years doing marketing, leading cultural marketing for Nike in different territories. And nowadays, I just founded my agency. I would like to ask each one of the panelists, maybe starting with Niege, just give a bit of a background of yourself from Brazil, and then we can come to the United States experience. But you can start with Niege, please.
Hi. I am a graphic designer and illustrator, and I've been in the United States for about 5 years, 6 years, kind of. And yeah, I've been working as a freelancer full time this whole time, and even I was also doing that when I was in Brazil. So yeah, I've been working as a freelancer for a while now, and yeah, I work with several different agencies here, and with some also sometimes directly with clients. And yeah.
And what's your background in Brazil? Like, which part of Brazil are you from? And also for the audience to picture, I mean, I know you're from the South, so I'd like to speak that background of yourself from a Brazilian perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm from the South, so I'm from Porto Alegre, which I feel that it's like, I know Brazil is so huge, right? So like each part is so different. So like I feel that sometimes in the South we are so different from other cultures in Brazil, and I wish I sometimes wish I could experience even more other cultures from Brazil, but the country is so big and I'm like down there, and I feel that I like I'm missing something sometimes. but yeah, I do like the South, and we have like beautiful nature down there, and we're also known for the barbecue, which I don't eat because I'm a vegetarian, but yeah. So I've been in the South for my whole life, and then I came to New York.
Okay. And Kristen, would like for you to speak a little bit of yourself, your background for us. Again, I think you have a very different background in comparison to ourselves as well. And I think that's fantastic. We'd love to hear from you, your experience.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. I'm a web developer currently based in New York, and I work for the Wall Street Journal. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, was born in the United States, but my mother is from Curitiba, Paraná, Brazil, in the south. And I grew up visiting Brazil every year. I have a citizenship to Brazil, and I was baptized there as well. And it's a place that I have very fond memories of, but I haven't been to for quite a while. I think honestly, one of the perks of quarantine is that I've taken the time to like reconnect myself with my Brazilian heritage, and that I'm working really hard on my Portuguese. I've been practicing every day, and I have a tutor, and I'm speaking it more with my mother and my father as well. And I'm also Cuban, which is a huge part of my culture at home because my Cuban grandmother lives with us. So we speak Spanish in the house, and then my parents speak Portuguese to each other. So it's kind of a big mess in my head, but that's just how I grew up. So I'm thankful for it.
Awesome. And I think later on in this conversation, we can speak a little bit more of like the Cuban-Brazilian connection. I feel
For sure,
it's
yeah.
a lot to be spoken about that.
Yeah.
Mailson, what's up? Tell us about yourself. Mailson is a very good friend of mine, so.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big pleasure, being here talking. I'm Mailson Soares. I'm originally from São Paulo, Brazil. It is a big city. São Paulo, I see as like New York of Brazil. And I come from a neighborhood called Capão Redondo, which is is a favela and what people see it. For me, it's culture. And um, I've been working. I graduated like 10 years ago in a film school for for people with low income in Brazil. And after like 4 years after that, I moved it. I moved to Los Angeles, California, and worked hard for like a couple years until I got into the film industry again. And now I can put on my resume that I've worked with people like Snoop Dogg, like Quincy Jones, um, and also a lot of people from Brazil. So thanks for having me.
Mailson's a little humble, but as you can see, Quincy Jones, Snoop Dogg, Racionais, which is the biggest and most important iconic rap group from Brazil. Lately, you did an amazing video with them, right? That was quite interesting.
Yes, man. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, now there is a lot of people from Brazil that I'm I'm very grateful to have worked with, and definitely it changed my whole perspective of work and culture.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think for each one of us, we probably, at least I feel very strong about that. We take our background, culture, and not just that, but also our life experiences in Brazil um, into experiences in the United States, like how Brazil taught us. You know, I'm from Rio, which it's a city obviously super strong within its own culture, often quite not isolated, but look at itself strongly in our own culture. We tend to be very arrogant about that, but also a city with a lot of intensity, from the great, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, to also a very unfortunately, but you take those experiences into the experience you have in the United States. Like, how was the experiences of each one of you adapting yourself to the society? Obviously, Kristen, you're from here. So I think the question for you will shift a bit, not just exactly how is yourself adapting to the society, because that's where you're from, but how do you intermingle your experiences being Brazilian, but being from the United States? How your Brazilianness comes alive in here? Maybe we can start with you.
Sure. I would say more than anything, I'm just grateful to be Brazilian, especially within the community that I grew up in. I didn't really know any other Brazilians until I got to high school. I also didn't know many Latino people that were like in my elementary school or anything. So I was always at the time I wasn't grateful, but looking back, I'm very grateful to have had that like space of culture within my family. And I would say some of my, earliest memories were visiting Brazil during the Bush years. And like, I remember like being in the back of a cab once in Curitiba and my parents like telling me not to speak in English in the cab. And I look back on that and I'm like, of course, because everybody hated Bush, but it was a very interesting way to grow up, like comparing Illinois and Curitiba, Paraná. Those are two like very different parts of the world.
How about you, Niege? How did you translate your experiences as a Brazilian into adapting yourself in the United States in these last 5 years?
That's a good question. I think for me, the biggest change basically was that Porto Alegre is now like really a very big city, right? And like I've been to São Paulo before and I traveled. And then when I came here, I'm like, oh, okay, now I live in a big city. And that was very exciting. And it still is. And I don't know, I'm proud to be a Brazilian and I try to incorporate that into my art whenever possible. So yeah, I think coming here, it was also nice to have the support of other Brazilians Like I have like a good amount of Brazilian friends here, which I really appreciate. Um, yeah.
What about you, Mailson? How did you translate growing up in São Paulo, in Capão Redondo, which is, I think, for context for the audience, is a very interesting area. My family is from São Paulo, not that far from Capão Redondo. Family from my mom's side. Capão Redondo is the epicenter of hip hop in Brazil. Brazil is one of the largest countries nowadays in the world that loves hip hop and has a very strong hip hop culture over there. And Mailson comes from the epicenter of it. So I was assuming culturally you're not exactly that far from the culture in LA, as an example, especially because the hip hop in Capão Redondo tends to be very LA influenced by musically and aesthetically wise. But how do you adapt yourself? Funny enough, I met Mailson when he came to the United States, but I would love to hear from him for the audience.
Yes, that's a very different way of living. First of all, it's very different. From where I come from, I don't have access to nothing that I have right now. So I don't have, I wouldn't be able to have my studio if I was there because it is just too expensive and the way of living, doing, bills every month and all of that, they struggle in the hood. So, but I got into film industry really early in Brazil at a age at 17. And so moving to US, first thing of all, I didn't speak English. When I first met Rudah, I couldn't speak English. So it was like it took me like 2 years so I could understand and see what's happening, but along this way, I enjoy it a lot because as Rudah said, I come from Capão Redondo and I was very influenced by hip hop throughout my life. So moving to Los Angeles and being in the places that they used to be talking about in the music for me was just magic, and also helped me come, along the way because you need to adapt yourself in every way possible. I didn't know how to buy beans, and it was amazing. It was definitely a very humbling experience. I grew up a lot, and I think when I merge these with my background in Brazil, that's my use right now. That's who I am. That's where my big lessons coming from. So that's how I see my transition.
Though, yeah, interesting. Like for me, I've been here 16 years. I came in a completely different time, 2004. Coming from Rio, again, a city that has the intensity, super, it can be super cosmopolitan, but also super self-centered. And the level of violence also played an effect. And I think in Rio, I see that very strong, but I see that as a whole in Brazil, we often want to do stuff. We go do it without even, if we don't have either proper education or a formal structure in order to do what we want. We just learn in the process. And that has been for me, which is very interesting, learning within the process, coming from music to then to marketing. And I didn't even do university. I tried to do university here in the United States, and I found out that I needed a student visa and stuff like that. So it was interesting. It's been an interesting journey, but I found myself here thriving due to like coming from the background of being very outspoken in Brazil, especially people in Rio, we are very outspoken and we are able to navigate through different cultures, different ways of thinking, different ways of talking, whatever. We're able to adapt it ourselves. Also, I gotta be honest, it mesmerized me coming from a culture that we are very outspoken. We tell people in our faces, what we're thinking. The United States has a bit of a passive-aggressive culture where people not necessarily tell you often what's the real deal, you know what I mean? And also not just that, but you have to figure out your own. that for me it was interesting, but eventually I learned how to navigate through that. I think we have that in Brazil. Now, a question too, I think for all of us, I think that's also one of the main reasons why we're here is we come from Latin America. Like obviously Brazil is part of Latin America. Honestly, it's interesting. It's a personal experience of myself. When I come to the United States, suddenly we are calling ourselves, or we're getting called Latinos. We call ourselves Latinos, and I think it's a very complex terminology. In one way, I feel it protects ourselves as a community, even so we are such a diverse and gigantic community, so heterogeneous. In other ways, my personal experience, I feel often it erases identity, because a person comes from Mexico, the other from El Salvador, the other from Cuba, the other from Brazil, but suddenly we all the same. And often I perceive the Americans look at us as Latinos are a race. Now we're not a race. As we can see here, we're very diverse, we're as diverse as any place in the world. And is this erasing of identity, which I think can be problematic, and also a colonial terminology perspective to this is just very strong, right? So it's a debatable perspective. Despite the terminology, I feel that Brazil, we lack more connectivity with the brothers and sisters in Latin America. I think we should be way more engaged. And I mean, obviously it's a language barrier, but it's beyond that. And it goes within colonialism. We tend to look too much into the United States and Europe, and way less than Latin America and Africa, considering 54% of the population came from Africa. Brazil has very strong ties with Africa, so it's another part of the world that Brazil should be looking way deeper. But we have a lot of obviously similarities, a lot of connectivities naturally with it. I'd love to hear from each one of you. How do you feel yourselves as a Latin American in the United States, with this terminology of being Latinx, Latino, and such? And how do you feel this exchange it is and should be? We can start with you, Kristen. First thing with Kristen, I would love to touch on that. Coming from Rio, I don't think that's all over Brazil, to be honest, but people from Rio, people from Bahia, and some states in Northeast, we have a lot of proximity in Cuba. I would say maybe the closest culturally country, I don't know if in the world, at least in the Americas, it's Cuba. More than the United States, 100%. So I'd love for you to touch base on that.
Yeah, I would say because, I grew up in the United States, the term Latin American was something that I was always like aware of and familiar with. And it's not something that I ever, dissected until probably recently. I know like my parents never refer to themselves as Latino. They'll just say either, I'm a Brazilian or I'm Cuban, point blank. But I do remember growing up, I would receive a lot of people would refer to me as Mexican all the time, which is totally fine. I love Mexico, but I'm not Mexican. I have nothing to do with Mexico. So I think the homogeneousness is like definitely something that has been passed across the term like Latino. And it's funny too, because I can't imagine ever referring to somebody from Ireland as like a European, because that's just like so broad of a term. And the connection between Cuba and Brazil is really sweet, and something that I've noticed as well. I had the privilege of going to Cuba, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and there were Brazil flags everywhere. And it was
Nice.
so sweet. I definitely didn't see many American flags there.
Yeah.
What about you, Niege? How do you perceive yourself within the Latin American experience? How do you see yourself within this terminology of Latina? And how do you see the cultural exchange between Brazil and Latin America?
Yeah, I guess I started to think of myself as a Latina when I came here, because before I was just like right, I'm Brazilian, right? Like I never even think about it, even though I knew that Brazil was part of Latin America. But yeah, I definitely I'm fine. I'm identify as Latina, and yeah, I think maybe because Brazil is so big that we sometimes don't interact with other cultures. So sometimes like maybe we feel like we're like this different like part of Latin America, which we are, but also we are also part of Latin America, right? So so yeah, and here often like I live here in Bushwick, which there are a lot of Latinos, and sometimes they speak Spanish with me, and I feel bad that I can't reply back also because like sometimes I don't know. I could try to like pretend that I know some Spanish. I know like very basic Spanish, but sometimes I don't know how to like reply, and I feel bad because now I'm like the person that clearly looks Latina but is like replying in English, you know. but yeah, I think it's I don't know. I'm very proud to be part of the Latino community here.
What about you, Mailson?
Uh, man, that's very interesting. I would start saying that I also learned throughout the process as we spoke, and I remember very well, like being in Brazil, and I've heard the term Latino Americano. We've heard these, but we're never gonna say that in any occasion. Like any occasion that is not an academic occasion. This is my perspective. This is my life and people around me. So moving moving to US, then I start to hear that, and then I start to try to understand because there's a big conflict because I'm Mailson from Brazil, but if I don't open my mouth, I'm black, you know. So it was very confusing in the beginning, but then I was starting to understand what is called Latino right here. And if Brazil is referred as a Latino country and people that come to here is Latino, well, that I would be Latino, you know? That's not something that is part of my life. Well, now is, but before it wasn't. And also it taught me that I have way more common things um, and connections with people that is called Latinos too, you know, with the Latino community, because of course we don't speak the same language, but the words are kind of the same. And throughout the process, I was able to learn Spanish as well. And then I started to communicate with people who speak Spanish that were coming from other countries. And then I, I saw how culturally we are connected, the way we grew up, the way we deal with our families. And so from that point, I started to see the connection that the Latino community has.
I think we saw. I mean, me and Mailson, we met in LA when he moved from Brazil, and then 2 years ago we worked together in a project in New York. And I think it's two moments that I think is important to be touched here. Obviously, in LA, there's not much a Latin American Caribbean community. You know, I mean, we don't have as many Cubans, Puerto Ricans, or Dominicans as we have in the East Coast, right? It's mainly Mexico, Central America. Um, so that is the experience that we had in the West Coast. But then when Mailson came, I remember you being very interested in within especially the Dominican community here in New York, right? Like the food and the way to behave and
Man, I felt like home. Like every time I go to New York, my heart beats harder because um is the connection. Like, for example, I'm in Hollywood. If I go out right now, there's nobody here in the street. There's nobody's gonna be on my way coming out my apartment and going out to the street. There will be nothing happening.
Because everybody drives.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
There's no one in
like,
the streets. Where is in Brazil?
yeah, where I come from, oh no. You wake up in the morning, there's people already screaming, kids running. Anytime you go, kids are playing soccer in the street. You're gonna see like 10 kids like from 5 to 12 years old all together in the street without their parents. And I go to Brooklyn and I see this life happenings. I go to um Washington Heights, I see this all of these happening, and I go eat and I see the rice and the beans, and so I'm definitely more connected with that, you know, and that's how I see um how connected we are as culture, way more than we know, because growing up I wouldn't know that. I had never met someone from another country until I get out of Brazil.
I think one thing, I think for the audience here, I'm assuming you have audience from all over the world as backgrounds, possibly mostly from Latin America, but again, with so much different countries and backgrounds from Latin America as well. One interesting thing I have a perception I would love to hear from you guys is we have Karina from Guarulhos in São Paulo right there.
Oh, shout out to Guarulhos.
So Brazil being so huge and diverse, I feel a proximity in regards of cultural exchange, ways of behave, perceive the world, or whatever, has to do with the regional identities we have. Meaning that I often perceive myself coming from Rio again, very close to Cuba, or to a certain extent to Brooklyn, some parts of Miami. Also, I live in the West Indian part of Brooklyn, so you do have also a lot of. I often say I'm way closer culturally to the West Indian Day Parade in Brooklyn than at the same day the Brazilian Carnival on Fifth Avenue, right? I see it, folks within the Midwest of Brazil experience culturally very close to what goes on in the country experience of the United States or northern Mexico as well, especially actually southwest United States, actually southwest and northern Mexico. I would say is very close to the west of Brazil. I would say some parts of Bahia and the Maranhão state quite close to Haiti. The south of Brazil obviously has a huge exchange with Argentina, Uruguay, but also ties within Italy and Germany, maybe Poland, right? Bahia have very strong ties with Nigeria and Benin, but also Jamaica, parts of Haiti. So no one really talks about that. And I think that's very interesting. Again, how many countries I just said, and not just in the Americas, we also speak in Africa and Europe, right? And Kristen, as you know, parts of Paraná, if we go, it's very Japanese as well. So I think those regional identities that we have in such a diverse and huge country also puts us in touch with other nationalities that not necessarily are, again, like this notion of Latin America or just the United States or whatever, I mean? How do you guys think about that from a regional perspective? I think that's very strong. Mailson?
Oh, man, it's crazy because
Your family's from Bahia, right?
I'm gonna say from my perspective, okay? Because since we all have different backgrounds, I'm always gonna speak from my perspective because I think it's very interesting to share this vision with you guys. We growing up, I didn't see really that connection with other places because I wouldn't go to other places, and especially like Africa, we don't really learn this until we grow and go after information, start to study. So when I start to see other cultures like you mentioned, um, Jamaica, Haiti, and before I come to US, I went to Bahia, which is where my parents come from, a city called Amargosa, and the connection that we have in food, music, the way we dress, the way we speak, even though it is different languages, this is all connected. Um, Religion. When I go to Brooklyn and I see all of this happening, when I go to the Caribbean Carnival and I look at Rudah and I say, Rudah, this is, I know what it is, man. I know what it is. I know they're carrying those chains. I know what it is. I know what it is. All of those kids' toys. I know what it is. This is connected with what I used to see back home with Candomblé and Umbanda. Is that what I'm thinking it is? And yeah, it is. So I feel like I'm just starting to realize how deep we are connected right now, especially because we have um, the Africa background from our ancestors. This connection is way strong than we all think it is, and we see this daily. So that's how I see, and I'm still learning.
Perfect. Niege, how about for you, coming from the South, this especially I got in the South, you guys have a lot of connectivity within Argentina, Uruguay, often due to European immigration from especially Germany, Poland, and Italy. But how's for you? And I think Patsy Delgado here, I'm kind of opening the Q&A because that goes along while we're talking. And Patsy, we're going to touch in the other question that you gave it to us, but I think you gave a very interesting question. How do your cultural identity influences your art? So first is kind of like, how do you have any exchange from your region of Brazil within other parts of Latin America and such? And how does that background influences your art coming from the South?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that I never felt like a very big connection with Argentina or Uruguay, even though like we're super close to each other. I did like lived in Buenos Aires for like 3 months. I love Argentina, but I never felt like a super cultural connection with them, even though I really like to go there. And yeah, in the south we do have like a mix of people like from like Germany and Italy, and we have a lot of white people in the south. And yeah, I think my background, I don't even know exactly like what my background is, and I never like thought about it so much. I started to thinking more about that when I came here to the US, because here people are like, oh, I'm Irish American and whatever, and like I never like thought of that, because I'm just Brazilian. Like I don't know what else, So I know that there's some like native Brazilians somewhere in the past in my family, but I don't know much more than that really. Uh, so yeah, I guess I just always felt that I never had like a very strong connection with the
Do you
country.
think, do you think your Brazilianness influences within your art?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I don't know, like Brazil is so like such a vibrant country, and like Mailson was saying, like we have like so many people, and I am influenced by like the different types of people, which is also like something that we have here in Brooklyn. Like, so that's definitely part of my art. Like, I like to portray different types of people, and uh, I've I'm trying to incorporate even more my Brazilian heritage to my art lately, but I'm still figuring that out. But I think that the fact that I like to portray people like with different like shapes and colors, I think that's probably part of it. Uh, and as far as like, I think she also asked how my move to Brooklyn played a role in my art. I think that it was like a big role because before coming here, I was like more focused on client work, right? So like I would do what the agencies and the clients needed me to do, and I would do like I had on my free time I would like to do some art, but it was never like my focus. My focus was to do whatever my clients needed me to do, right? Like any style of illustration. When I came here, I saw like so many other artists that like were able to like really make a living of their art. So I started to invest more into that and into developing a personal style, which of course there's a lot of people doing that in Brazil too. But I think when I came here, I started to like think more about that and to develop like more a personal style of illustration and also painting.
Dope, dope. Yeah, I see. I mean, me personally, when I saw your art, and it's so interesting. I knew about your art before we actually met for this, right? I definitely see the vibe, not just the vibrancy within colors, but the dynamics of the characters. I mean, feels home, just an extent, right?
Yeah.
Patty also asked, do you ever feel excluded for us, right? Do you ever feel excluded from discussions related to Latinidad? And if so, do you think it's the Spanish washing of Latin culture, or is it deeper than that? I think that's a good question. I think, yeah, I think within all of that, it's very deep into context, right? All the subjects. Are we excluded from Latinidad? Yes, and yeah, yes, because I think we exclude ourselves, unfortunately, and yes, one because of the language, because we exclude ourselves, because one thing that I think is very interesting within Spanish-speaking countries in Latin America, it's countries, these countries, they have a net of influence. They listen to the music, the Spanish music, the TV channels, the internet media channels, or whatever, more than actually often American stuff, right? I travel very many times to Colombia, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and especially in Mexico, I saw not much of this Americanized situation that we unfortunately see a lot in Brazil, right? So I salute to that. I think that's dope. That exchange, the cultural exchange within Spanish-speaking countries in Latin America. So to some extent, we are excluded from that, and we exclude ourselves from that. But again, I think it goes along with what's Latinidad. What's there? It's a very deep conversation. What do you think, Kristen? What do you think? You coming from a Cuban Brazilian family in the United States, do you feel, like anytime you see anything when it comes to Latin community, do you feel Brazilians are represented? We are underrepresented? Should we be represented? What do you think?
I would say I definitely feel like Brazilian culture is underrepresented. I mean, I think part of the reason why it was easier for me growing up, I learned Spanish a lot quicker, obviously, because I was learning Spanish alongside it, like as I was growing up in school, because they teach you Spanish. I think Brazilian culture is something that I'm learning to understand even a little bit more, like as I am getting older. It has been kind of a mystery to me, but I think even as you mentioned earlier on in our conversation about how, you know, Americans are very passive aggressive, that's something that I've kind of been reckoning with my whole life, because in my family, like in Cuban culture and Brazilian culture, like if you feel something, like it's immediately apparent, especially within my family. And that was something that I was noticing within my own interpersonal relationships growing up in school and with my friends now. And I think that to me is like the most lived piece of Brazilian Cuban culture that I can hold on to, is that, you know, when I'm feeling something, it's pretty, you know, kind of evident, I guess.
Dope. Mailson, do you feel, how do you feel about that? Do you feel represented when it comes to this notion of Latinidad, or do you feel underrepresented? Do you feel we should be represented? What do you think?
I feel like when we think about Brazilian Latinos, we don't see what is real Brazil, especially right here in US. We have a very tiny view because people that are coming from Brazil, they're from all over the world, and uh, most of the times, what really leads the culture in Brazil, it's there. So it gets hard for us to really connect it and like be connected with movements and talking about it all the time. We don't do this right here. We don't. I'm not in the Brazilian community right here, so we don't have conversations. And um, I don't feel when I hear something in somewhere talking about Latinos, I will definitely stop and hear it. But I know that they're not really talking to me because, like I say, if I don't open my mouth, I'm not Latino. But I'm connected, you know. I'm very connected with the real thing. I am connected. When I speak with someone, we we are connected just by who we are. We don't really need much because of our backgrounds and how we grew up. So yes, that's it.
We have two very good questions over here. I feel they are more directed to one to Chris and the other to Niege. So I'm going to start with the last one, which is for Niege, because we just spoke with Chris, and then I'll go to the one with Kristen. For Niege, I mean, again, I think those questions could be spoken by every one of us, but it feels more directed to you. As Brazilians living in the United States, who do you make your art for, and who connects to your art the most? Brazilians in Brazil, Brazilians in the United States, or Latin American folks within the United States?
I think that anyone really, like, I think art can be seen by everyone, and like especially today with like the internet, like anyone can like see your art and relate to your art. So I get like comments from and messages from people from all over really. So I think anyone can connect with my art really. And I am happy to see when especially people of color feel represented, which I always try to do with my art. And yeah, so I hope that everyone feels represented and can connect.
Awesome. Question for Kristen. Leticia gave a question. Do you think, do you ever feel stuck in this weird in-between place of not being American, but also not feeling enough of a Brazilian after living in the United States? So basically she says, after living in the United States for so long, but still being a Latin American immigrant, I often feel disconnected to both cultures. Do you feel yourself connected as a Brazilian? Do you feel more American? Do you feel American, see yourself as an American? Like, how do you see yourself in this context?
I would say for a really long time, I didn't really identify myself much as a Brazilian. I mean, obviously I did on paper, but it wasn't a culture that I recognized within myself because I wasn't practicing Portuguese. I was mostly just, speaking Spanish with my grandma, but like I'd speak English with my mom at home, and like I didn't go to Brazil for 10 years or something. So it was something that like I was kind of shameful about because obviously I was very impressed with Brazilian culture, but like I never felt connected to it for a long time. And so that is absolutely something that I've struggled with. But I've been working through, like I said, I'm practicing Portuguese all the time, and I'm like forcing my mom to only speak Portuguese with me. And it's been really amazing, and I'm really fortunate that I'm able to like discover this and be better about it. But I would say, yeah, all the time I feel too American or like not American enough, I guess. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but I'm grateful for it.
Interesting. I have a question over here by Patty that I think I would like to answer real quick. Is obviously related to music, and I work in music for so long. Never did I think that reggaeton Spanish music would be so globalized, especially in recent years. Puerto Rico, Colombia, and Mexico dominate the charts. True. Do you see Brazilian music media following suit anytime soon? So this is interesting, right? Like Brazil has one of the largest, biggest music industries in the world. The interesting thing is that Brazil lives off its own. The Brazil numbers that we see, so Brazil has the second largest music channel in the world, Condzilla, a baile funk YouTube channel, is the second largest in the world. But again, who is watching that channel? Brazilians. Some of our hits and artists are able to get numbers that are comparable to Rihanna, Drake, Beyonce, but again, within just Brazilian audience, and that shows how crazy and large that country is. In regards of globalizing Brazilian music, I think Brazilian music has been globalizing in its ways with bossa nova, samba here and there. I think baile funk is a music that people enjoy, but they quite don't. I mean, they don't get the lyrics or whatever. Me personally, I have a fear of globalizing it because often when you globalize, you dilute your own culture and you Americanize your culture due to the industry of nowadays. I don't really care for globalizing my culture, to be honest. I'm totally fine. I think we as Brazilians, such a big country and wealthy in the way it is, as music, we're good. So I'm very careful with that. But I would love to see true music, true musicians, and true music lovers digging even more of Brazilian music. We all do respect to the culture, its roots, where it comes from, in all this crazy diversity that we have. Then we have the last question over here. We have 4 minutes. It's been such a great conversation. How do you think non-Brazilian Latin folks in the US can help bring visibility to Brazilian culture? How can we be allies? It's a phenomenal question. Let me see. Super quick. We don't have much time. If you guys can give like a quick paragraph.
Okay.
Our Latin American brothers and sisters can help bring visibility to us within this conversation. What do you think? Super quick.
Yes. We need to connect more, definitely, as people, as community, as artists, as, we need to be connected. We all have things to exchange, and being aware. I love my country, I love my culture, and I love everything I do right now, but we have real issues going on in Brazil that we don't speak in the word. It's only spoken in Brazil, and unfortunately we don't nothing really happen. It just keep on the loop. So connect with it, pay attention, like give us some attention, because we need your help. We do need it.
Niege, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think he put it perfectly. I think like just like connect with more Brazilians and like I don't know, like even though we don't speak the same language, we all are part of the same, group. So yeah, I really don't know how like we could like bring more visibility to us as Latinos. But I guess if we just start to connect to each other more, I think that's a start.
Kristen?
I agree with y'all. Yeah, I couldn't say it better.
I think just to add a bit over here. I think the learn with the kids that are listening to K-pop from South Korea. They capable of going, kids from the Americas, not just the United States, but Brazil, Mexico.
True.
They're so into Korean culture, which is way more distant. It's the same thing. I think creating the interest nowadays with internet, you have so many platforms, so much information. Music's there for us, culture's there for us. I feel from a gastronomy perspective, Brazilian restaurants in the United States are much better, but that's a different conversation. And to Mailson's point, I think it's important also to not dig just for the culture, the dance, the music, the soccer, whatever, but also understand that the geopolitical power that Brazil have. understanding Brazil, aircraft, the second maker of aircraft in the world, one of the biggest car makers in the world, one of the biggest agricultural economies in the world. So basically, when the prices rise in regards of the beef that you eat on your table, or the prices of the plane tickets that you take to a trip in Europe rises, that probably has a lot to do with Brazil. So understanding that the protests that happened in Brazil in 2013 can be a case study to what's going on in the United States in regards of politics nowadays. So understand all those dimensions, not just make you understand more of Brazil, but make us understand of ourselves within the United States, Latin America, the Caribbean, any other part of the world. So Brazil, it's important to understand as any other country in the world and in a global perspective. I want to say thank you to all y'all. Thank you to Kristen, thank you to Niege, thank you to Mailson. A great, great thank you to La Nueva Link, to Brianna, to Deborah, to Jen for putting this together. And especially thank you for the audience to join us today. I believe the link is gonna be open later on to rewatch this. Thank you all. Brianna?
Yeah, thank you so much, y'all, for joining our last Latinx Heritage Month. Stay tuned for more, and thank you again. Have a good night, y'all. Be safe.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Good night.
Adios.